Imagine spending millions of dollars to build a brand new luxury waterfront dock.
Right. You pour the concrete, you install the state-of-the-art slips.
Yeah, exactly. You cut the ribbon, and before a single human boater can even sign a lease, your very first tenants just, well, they move right in.
And they completely take over all the prime real estate.
Oh, totally. And they refuse to pay a single dime in rent because, well, in fact, they aren't even human.
It is basically the ultimate hostile takeover by local wildlife.
It really is. Today, we are looking at a multi-million-dollar harbor overhaul that was immediately hijacked by a massive colony of California sea lions. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
So if you really want to understand the DNA of a community, you can't just look at the postcard version of it.
No, you have to look deeper.
Right. You have to approach it the way you look at the cross-section of a freshly felled tree trunk.
Oh, that's a really good way to visualize it.
Thanks, yeah. If you run your hand over that rough wood and just look closely, you see the whole story at once. You see the tight, dark rings of deep history right in the center. And then you see the wide, light-colored bands of rapid new growth on the outer edges. And you realize that an entire, complex, living ecosystem is relying on that single structure to survive.
Which is just a profound way to visualize urban geography.
Yeah.
Because a community, especially a waterfront one, isn't just some static point on a map.
Right. Not at all.
It's a living, breathing organism.
Right.
And it's constantly engaged in this brutal and beautiful balancing act between raw nature and human ambition.
And to explore that balancing act, we are taking you straight to the water today, specifically the Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard, California.
Which is going through some major changes.
Massive changes. Our sources today are incredibly hyper-local. We are pulling from a community update show called The Harbor Pod.
Yeah, specifically their 43rd release.
Exactly, which is dated today, actually, May 11, 2026. And we're pairing that with a stack of raw community event notes.
So we are zooming way, way in on this one specific harbor town.
We are, but our mission here isn't to just read you the local news. We are using this hyper-local lens to extract the broader lessons.
Right, the macro trends.
Yeah, we want to see how any modern microcommunity manages to balance massive disruptive infrastructure overhauls, hands-on environmental stewardship, and a deep, almost stubborn reverence for its own maritime history.
And this is relevant for you, the listener, no matter where you live. Microcommunities act like pressure cookers for these macro trends.
Oh, absolutely.
The way a single harbor town navigates the tension between building a highly profitable tourist destination and protecting a fragile marine ecosystem, well, it tells us an immense amount about human geography.
And the economics of conservation, right?
Yes, and global cultural shifts.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sheer scale of the physical transformation happening at Channel Islands Harbor right now is just staggering.
They are completely redrawing the blueprint of this waterfront.
They really are. For starters, we have the Bahia Marina, which just finished a massive construction phase.
And that's where the Mystic Whaler's docked now, right?
Yes, the Mystic Whaler. It's this stunning 110-foot, two-mast schooner. It actually functions as a floating classroom for tours and workshops.
Wow.
But, I mean, that is barely a drop in the bucket. At the end of the peninsula, they have literally demolished the old docks to make way for a massive Hilton Hyatt House project.
And this represents a deliberate, aggressive shift in the harbor's economic engine.
It's huge.
Yeah. The plans for this Hilton call for a 210-room, 4-story complex.
4 stories, yeah.
It isn't just a place for weary travelers to sleep. It is designed as a self-contained destination. We're talking rooftop bars, public restaurants, event spaces, open plazas.
Which obviously requires a massive influx of outside capital.
Exactly.
But wait, it gets even bigger. Then you have Fisherman's Village. Right now, it's this aging, mostly vacant commercial area.
Kind of an eyesore at the moment, from what the notes imply.
Yeah, pretty much. So they are completely tearing it up to build a development called Carl's Village, which was approved back in 2025.
Carl's Village, right?
Yeah. And it's going to be an 11-acre mega destination blending maritime and agricultural themes.
11 acres is massive for a harbor project.
It is. They are adding a central indoor market, artisan food experiences, outdoor spaces, and, get this, even light amusement rides.
Wow. Rides, too.
Yeah, it is a massive eat, play, shop concept designed to totally re-energize the harbor. But, I look at all this development and I have to push back a little.
Go for it.
if we are dropping 210-room corporate hotels with rooftop bars and paving over 11 acres to build themed villages with amusement rides, aren't we just building a maritime theme park?
That's a fair concern.
Right. Don't we risk losing the authentic, gritty, salt-of-the-earth feel of a working harbor to all this polished commercialization?
What's fascinating here is the brutal economic reality of coastal urban planning.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Historically, you are right. A harbor was strictly functional. It was an industrial zone. It smelled of diesel exhaust, fish guts, and low tide.
Very romantic.
Right, it was a place of heavy physical labor. But structurally and financially, mid-century industrial docks can no longer survive on the margins of small-scale commercial fishing and private boat docking.
Because it's just too expensive to maintain.
Staggeringly
Yes.
expensive. The dredging, the seawall maintenance, the basic infrastructure upkeep.
So they're forced to pivot just to keep the lights on.
Precisely. Urban planners are shifting toward these immersive, story-driven community hubs because they absolutely must integrate year-round foot traffic to survive.
So the history alone doesn't pay the bills.
No, it doesn't. The goal with a development like Carl's Village or the Hilton isn't necessarily to erase the maritime culture, but to commodify the aesthetic of it just enough to generate the tax revenue and lease fees that keep the physical harbor from crumbling into the ocean.
Wow, so it is a survival tactic disguised as a luxury upgrade.
That's exactly what it is.
A survival tactic. I suppose when you put it like that, the rooftop bar is essentially subsidizing the seawall.
Pretty much.
But rebuilding the physical foundation of the harbor doesn't just alter the local economy, it fundamentally alters the local environment.
Because nature responds.
Always. Which brings us back to those first tenants who hijacked the luxury real estate.
Ah, yes. The sea lions at the newly reconstructed Anacapa Isle Marina.
Yes. Safe Harbors just spent millions of dollars building these brand new, pristine docks.
And human boaters haven't even been allowed to move in yet.
Not a single one. Instead, the local California sea lions and these massive flocks of marine birds looked at these multi-million-dollar docks and decided it was the perfect luxury waterfront condo for them.
They completely occupied the slips.
Totally taken over.
You see, nature is essentially an opportunistic real estate agent.
That is so true.
The second humans pour a flat, sun-drenched concrete surface near a food source, a sea lion doesn't see human infrastructure. It sees a premium, predator-free sunbed.
Just lounging in the sun. And the wildlife is moving in on the north side of the harbor, too.
Oh, right, with the jellyfish.
Yeah, over in the Seabridge canals, the moon jellyfish have returned. The community notes mention that this is a rare cyclical event that only happens every 5 years or so.
That must be quite a sight.
They say it is. They flood the residential canals, and residents can just walk along the public paths and watch these mesmerizing creatures pulsing right at the edge of the water.
But the community isn't just standing by, passively watching nature respond to their architecture.
No, they aren't. They are actively stepping in to engineer the biological success of the water.
This is the transition from passive observation to active ocean stewardship.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the harbor is running a massive white sea bass enhancement program.
And this is quite an undertaking.
It really is. They just reconstructed these large holding pens right in the water, and they recently took delivery of 13,000 baby sea bass.
13,000.
Wow. Yeah. And every day, citizens and local volunteers are going to nurture these tiny fish for roughly 6 months.
So they do all the feeding and monitoring.
Everything. They monitor the water quality, they feed them, and they protect them until the fish reach about 9 to 10 inches in length.
Which is apparently the size where they have a fighting chance against predators.
Exactly. And then they release all 13,000 of them into the wild.
That's incredible.
It's like a local neighborhood community garden. But instead of citizens growing a few tomatoes for a summer salad, they are everyday citizens literally acting as a biological incubator for the entire local ocean ecosystem.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this represents a crucial shift toward decentralized conservation.
Wait, unpack decentralized conservation for me here.
Sure.
You mean instead of a government agency fencing off a marine reserve and telling humans to stay out, the power is handed down to the locals?
Exactly that. Traditional conservation often treats humans as a contamination to be isolated from nature.
Like, do not touch, stay behind the glass.
Right. But here, the program is supported directly by the commercial fishermen themselves, operating in partnership with the state of California Fish and Wildlife. But it's executed by the hands of everyday volunteers.
So everyone is involved.
It creates a symbiotic loop. The people who make their living extracting resources from the ocean are partnering with locals to actively replenish those same resources.
That makes so much sense.
When a local resident spends 6 months feeding a baby sea bass, they develop a proprietary emotional stake in the health of the ocean. They stop seeing the water as just a scenic backdrop and start treating it as a shared asset.
And that deep, hands-on respect for the marine ecosystem naturally extends to a dedication to protecting the humans who venture out into that same environment.
Which brings us to the events.
Right, the centerpiece event happening in the harbor this week, the 16th Annual Safe Boating Expo.
Happening on Saturday, May 16th.
From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Harbor East Park. It actually kicks off National Safe Boating Week, which runs May 16th through the 22nd.
And reading the notes on this event, the tone is incredibly upbeat.
Oh yeah, they are putting on a massive spectacle. At this expo, they are doing live on-the-water search and rescue demonstrations at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m.
This isn't just a boring lecture.
Far from it. We are talking about United States Coast Guard helicopters literally dropping rescue swimmers into the harbor.
Wow.
Yeah, working alongside local Ventura County first responders in high-stakes simulated emergency scenarios.
It is high-stakes theater, engineered with a very specific psychological purpose.
But I look at these Coast Guard helicopter drops and I have to ask, is a spectacle like a helicopter drop just for entertainment? I mean, does watching a rescue swimmer drop out of a helicopter actually create a measurable long-term cultural shift in how a community treats water safety?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand the psychology of risk assessment.
Okay, I'm listening.
Humans are notoriously terrible at grasping abstract danger. If a harbor patrol officer just stands at a booth and hands a teenager a black and white pamphlet about the buoyancy ratings of life jackets.
That pamphlet goes straight into the trash.
Exactly. But when you turn mandatory safety education into a thrilling, visceral public spectacle, when you use the roaring engines of a helicopter, the downdraft on the water, the sheer sensory overload of a live rescue, you capture the public's imagination.
You make it real for them.
You create a core emotional memory associated with water safety. And co-chairman Henry Goldman mentioned that the event is designed for everyone, from seasoned boaters to total novices.
So the helicopter is basically the bait to get them into the park.
Yes.
But once they're there, the notes show they are doing some incredibly practical things. You can tour the public safety vessels. They are doing free raffles where you can win whale-watching tickets or even Magic Castle tickets.
Which is pretty cool.
Definitely. And they are handing out coupons for discounted LED safety flares so people stop dropping the old environmentally toxic chemical flares into the ocean.
That's a great initiative.
And crucially, they run a life jacket exchange program.
This part is brilliant.
It is. Families can literally walk up with an outdated, torn-up life jacket and trade it in for a brand new, properly sized one, completely free of charge.
And that is where the cultural shift happens. In behavioral economics, if you want people to adopt a habit, you have to remove the friction.
Okay, so make it easy for them.
Right. Buying a new expensive life jacket requires driving to a marine store, spending money, and guessing the right size.
Which a lot of people just won't do.
Exactly. By making the gear free and exchanging it right there at a community festival, you entirely remove the friction.
Wow.
The spectacle of the helicopter is what brings the crowd. The free, correctly fitted life jacket is what actually changes the culture of preparedness.
So the spectacle is the hook, the cultural shift is the catch.
Very well put.
And you know, this community's dedication to teaching practical survival and navigation on the water today is really just a modern reflection of a much older, deeper history of maritime mastery.
Yes, the harbor actively celebrates that history.
They really do. The cultural and educational programming in this specific micro-community is remarkably vibrant.
It really stands out in the notes.
For example, the Channel Islands Maritime Museum is hosting an upcoming talk on May 21st by the author Glenn Henning.
And his subject matter is absolutely mind-blowing.
It is. He is detailing the history of ancient Polynesian navigators. We are talking about people who, for over 1,000 years, explored and populated a vast expanse of islands.
An area larger than the United States and Canada combined.
Which is just wild. And they did it without compasses, without drawn charts.
It remains one of the most extraordinary examples of human spatial genius in recorded history.
It really is.
They didn't just survive the ocean, they read it the way you or I would read a book.
But how? I mean, how do you navigate an area larger than North America with zero instruments?
They relied on an encyclopedic, multi-generational knowledge of their environment.
Like an oral history of the ocean.
Yes. They used wave piloting, where a navigator could literally feel the subtle differences in how ocean swells refracted off distant, unseen islands.
They could feel the islands and the waves. That is incredible.
Yeah. They understood the seasonal shifts of the winds, the temperature variations in the water, and the precise rotating map of the stars. It was a completely tactile relationship with the Earth.
And that deep dive into human tension and our relationship with our environment extends right into the local art scene, too.
Oh, the theater production.
Yes. The Elite Theater, which is right over by the area they are transforming into Carl's Village, is putting on a live play called Enemies of a Hometown. It runs from May 29th through June 21st.
And it's a coastal California reimagining of a classic, right?
Yeah, Henrik Ibsen's play, An Enemy of the People. It follows an environmental scientist who discovers contaminated water tied to a massive local project.
It sounds very timely.
Well, he tries to expose the contamination, but he faces fierce, overwhelming opposition from the town's mayor, who happens to be his own brother.
Talk about drama.
Right. And he faces opposition from the community itself because of the devastating economic implications of halting the project. Now, obviously, we're staying strictly neutral on the underlying political and environmental themes of the story here.
Of course, we're just reporting the plot.
Exactly. But it is fascinating that a local theater situated right in the middle of a massive harbor redevelopment is staging a play that so directly wrestles with the exact tensions a coastal town faces every single day.
The clash between economic survival, public pressure, and environmental ethics.
Yes, exactly that.
You know, art in a hyperlocal setting frequently serves as a mirror for a community's own subconscious anxieties.
That's a great point.
For a harbor town constantly negotiating the balance between nature and commerce, a play like that provides a safe, contained space to explore very real, very high-stakes local issues.
It's incredible how all these pieces fit together, and the harbor is clearly invested in passing these tactile, hands-on lessons down to the next generation.
The youth programs really highlight that.
They do. The notes mention an incredible youth program called Real Guppy Outdoors, led by a guy the locals literally call Community Kev.
Community Kev, I love that.
Yeah, and he's out there teaching hands-on ocean stewardship. And over at the Channel Islands Boating Center, they are running summer camps.
And they are pretty affordable, right?
Yeah, about $325 for a week. Kids who are 8 to 15 learn sailing and paddling. But my absolute favorite is the Minnows program.
The one for the younger kids.
Yeah, it's for 7 to 9-year-olds. These little kids just get out on the water, trying out kayaking and paddle boarding, just getting comfortable with the physical element.
Which is vital work in an area where children are increasingly disconnected from the physical world.
Oh, without a doubt. And, well, it wouldn't be a complete picture of the community without mentioning the anchor of it all.
The Sunday Farmers Market.
Yes. Amidst all the multi-million-dollar Hilton developments, the local notes specifically shout out the Williams family booth at the Sunday market.
Under the big blue tarp.
Under the big blue tarp, exactly. They sell a homemade ceviche that is reportedly the best on both sides of the Mississippi River.
That is quite a claim.
It is. But I love this detail because it shows the informal, analog microeconomy, cash for homemade food under a tarp thriving right next to the massive corporate gentrification.
It's the grounding force of the harbor.
So what does this all mean? When I look at those ancient Polynesian navigators with their vast, brilliant mental maps, and then I look at us today.
That's quite a contrast.
It is. We rely so heavily on our GPS and our smartphones just to find a coffee shop 3 blocks away.
We really do.
It makes me wonder how much innate human spatial awareness and how much of our deep physical connection to the natural world we have sacrificed just for the sake of digital convenience.
Well, the encyclopedic experiential knowledge of the ancient Polynesian navigating the open ocean and the 8-year-old in the Minnows program learning wind awareness in a sailboat, they actually share the exact same biological foundation.
Oh, really? How so?
True mastery of an environment requires tactile, hands-on engagement with the physical world, not just theoretical study.
Right. You can't just read about it.
Exactly. You cannot learn to read ocean wave refraction from a screen. You cannot learn the bite of the wind from a textbook.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whether you are charting a course across the Pacific or simply learning to steer a kayak inside a protected harbor breakwater, it requires you to be physically present.
You have to feel it.
Yes. It requires you to respect the elements and engage your senses. We lose our spatial awareness and ultimately our connection to our environment the moment we stop touching the world around us.
We lose our awareness the moment we stop touching the world. Man, that is a powerful takeaway.
It's something we all need to remember.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to bring this all back to you, the listener. What we've uncovered today is that a place like Channel Islands Harbor isn't just a scenic backdrop where you go to dock a boat or grab a fish taco.
No, it's far more complex than that.
It is a dynamic, living ecosystem. It is a place where massive infrastructure overhauls, high-octane helicopter safety training, historic maritime genius, and dedicated wildlife conservation all intersect.
And the broader relevance for you, the listener, is that wherever you live, whether near an ocean, a forest, or a concrete jungle, your local environment is telling a story.
You just have to look for it.
Exactly. If you look closely at the local infrastructure, the community events, and the environmental efforts right in your neighborhood, you will reveal a rich, interconnected narrative of how humans adapt to and protect their surroundings.
It really makes you want to step outside and pay closer attention to the cross-section of your own backyard.
It really does. And this raises an important question for you to take with you today.
Let's hear it.
We discussed the Polynesian navigators who relied on an intimate understanding of the stars, the winds, and the waves to chart their course across a massive ocean.
An incredible feat.
Truly. But today, in our modern data-saturated lives, we constantly rely on external technology and algorithms to guide our choices.
We let the phone tell us where to go.
Right. So, in your own life, what are your stars and winds? What are the natural instincts, analog skills, or deep human connections that you rely on to navigate your own complex world?
Wow. What are your stars and winds? That is a question that sticks with you. It goes right back to that tree trunk analogy we talked about at the very beginning.
It really does.
You can use an app on your phone to identify what kind of tree it is, but if you really want to know what it has survived, you have to get close. You have to touch the rough wood, count the rings yourself, and feel the history.
You have to engage with it.
You have to engage with the physical world right in front of you. All right, well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Keep looking closely at the world around you, and we'll catch you on the next one.